Hi, good morning. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I think this is what I do for a living, and it's also hard to explain sometimes. So I'm a designer by background, and I also work kind of looking at people and understanding how we interact with products, how we relate to this. It's not only the physical relationship with the products, but it's about how we perceive them, how do we think, what do we think about them. It's about our emotional connections as well. So I've done this for 15 years, so I've looked at people ironing and looking at people taking medicines. I look at people doing calls in a taxi, television, mobile phones, printing, cameras, transport. So I'm an industrial designer, and I have a master's degree in design, strategy, and innovation. And I run a consultancy called the Overworld, but I'm just calling it an observatory. Sometimes it's really hard to kind of pigeonhole and say, is it trends, is it insights, is it research? So I try to keep it open that way. And prior to that, I was director of futures at Seymour Powell. I worked there for 12 years. Seymour Powell is one of London's leading design consultancy. So I work at the front end of the creative process, always starting with consumer behavior in order to create a vision of what to inform and inspire, in order to inform and inspire what to design next. So when you are going to design a product, the first thing that you have to be looking at is at people, and you need to be wondering what are the consumer needs and what products are going to really touch them. So when I spoke to Liz, when she invited me to the event, she said, well, can you talk about something like that, an ethnographic user-centric approach to designing entertainment and storytelling instead of platform-centric one? I went, okay, well, I'll try. So my presentation is going to be about a fresh look at entertainment and storytelling. And I'm going to take you on a little journey, a little story before I start about the fresh look. So, and it's to help us go beyond our perceptions. So we are used to perceive things in a certain way, but let's just think about them from another point of view too. So this is a story that my former boss, Richard Seymour, used to tell, and I'm using it here because I think it's so good. So he tells a story that a teacher shows his 7-year-old students this and says, what is it? And this is what the student said. A laptop that prints as you type and you don't need to plug it in. I think it's brilliant because it just shows that we are used to perceive things with our eyes, and sometimes we cannot take a step back. And sometimes we just need to say, okay, hold on a second, I'm looking at things this way, but somebody else may be looking at it differently. Particularly because things are moving so fast. They're moving so quickly that we even don't have time to assimilate the changes sometimes. So this is my build on Richard's story, but if I show you this, what are you going to say it is? Well, it's actually the most used photo camera in Flickr. So if I show you that, you're going to say that it's a Canon 5D and it's a photo camera. But it's actually today's most popular video camera. So what was it happening? You know, we used to have video cameras that look a certain way, and now we like, our phone is now our cameras, and our cameras are now our video cameras, which is great, but it's also kind of, we're starting to see that convergency and with the more technologies coming inside one device, also some compromises started to emerge. So they are very challenging from a product design point of view, because this is the best camera as a video camera, but yet the ergonomics are not the right ones to be used as a video camera. So I work with filmmakers using this camera, and they need to hold it like that. So it's kind of like challenging the way you do things while it's bringing you some other benefits. And I got the Xbox here. So it's Netflix's most popular streaming platform. Not only is it an amazing game console, but as Elan was saying, the way that you can interact with the TV through Netflix is much better than, through Xbox is much better than the way that you can do with the TV straight away. Because we can watch Netflix in our tellies, because it's much better to use the Xbox remote control than to use the normal remote control. So a fresh look at storytelling. So where to look? If we want to look about storytelling, probably we don't want to start inside storytelling. We want to take a step back. So when I was talking about the overworld being about lenses, so this time I'm going to be talking about content, I'm going to be talking about audience, and I'm going to be talking about format. And I picked these three things because there are the three things key to define this ecosystem where that story that is going to be told is going to go. And when I think about filters, I'm looking at these intersections. And why? Because this used to be this way. We used to have content that came delivered in a particular format, and we used to have an audience that received that content. But now all the pieces everything is in flux. The content is developing very quickly, audience behaviors are developing, format is developing, and the intersections in between them are the really interesting space to look. So who are the audience and how are they interacting with certain format, when, where, why, what is the content? And then stories and articulate. And I picked transmedia storytelling, although, as Elan said, there are more people online also talking about the name of transmedia than the actual examples of it. But it's interesting. I know the think tank on Friday probably is going to be looking at naming of things. But so why I look at transmedia storytelling? Because I think it's the most exciting thing happening in terms of like how you can tell a story, yet still has some challenges. The audience is small, not everybody gets it, it's hard to explain, but I think the potential of it is huge, so that's why I picked that one as a frame of what stories to take. So when I'm going to be talking about content and audience and format, I'm going to be doing it with an angle thinking about transmedia. So, format. 10 years ago, I was researching televisions, and I was researching computers. There were two complete different things. Do you remember? We had lean back zones in the living room where we used to watch telly, and we had lean forward devices in our bedrooms or home offices. And that's how we used to do it. And we have the tellies, we had all the boxes around. We still have some boxes now, but they are different type. And we had like 4 or 5 remote controls. We had the set-top box, the TV remote control, the VHS, the DVD. We have the game console control. Why? Because we had like one format for each specific thing. So look at the home office. It's crazy to find still a TV in a home office, where you have a computer. Now you don't need that. So what's happening? On one hand, we had the TV and all the formats here. And on the other hand, we have the computer here. And what's happening now? Now that's gone. Now we can have any type of content we want in any type of device that we have at hand at home. So I can access the same content with my smartphone, with my tablet, with my laptop, with my telly. So it's great to look at kids, because kids just don't have all those barriers that we have in our minds of what things you use to do each thing. So that's one of mine, that's my son, and he's doing exactly the same things with the smartphone, with the computer, with the laptop, with the tablet. And kids gathering, kind of creating a spontaneous TV moment, watching a laptop. Do you remember we never used to be allowed to go so close to the TV? We used to watch the TV from very far distance. Something was going to happen to our eyes. We're not concerned about that anymore. We have like small screens, that's how we have to do it. So, and what this photo is telling us is like something strange happened here. And what happened, like the key point was the day that I started to access internet on my telly and the day that I started to access TV on my smart devices. So when those things happen, all that lean back, lean forward relationship changes. So viewing TV is becoming more active, and our smart devices are used as more launched devices. But of course, as I said before, when we're talking about the cameras, at a compromise. So what's happening is you give up trying to find a film in love film on the telly using your remote control, and then you're watching live TV in bed with a keyboard that you don't need. So it's kind of like you need the interacting part one side and you need the launching one other one. But it doesn't matter. The day is going to come and things are going to stabilize and we are going to be able to have, again, the right device for the things that we want to do. But in the meantime, and also there is the whole second screen story, but that's a different story. But they also can talk to each other. But I'm not going to talk about that because that will take me into some other direction. But what's important is like music, games, email, live TV, series, movies, social media. I can access that in any of my devices. So what's the saying for kind of like transmedia storytelling? If in the past, transmedia storytelling, if you tell a 5 years old in the past, it would have made sense, yes, because I do something on my telly, then I play a game, then I listen to music, then I log onto my computer on Facebook, then I do a phone call, an email, then I read the paper, and then I log a story, which is great, but we need to watch out that all these things I can now do with the same device. So if I'm going to be able to do all the things with the same device in one moment, that can't be the whole part of the story, that I have to move from one platform to the other one in order to interact. So the story has to also be challenging on its own mean, and it has to be able to live in one device. So I'm saying like we certainly will move from one media to the other one. I'm helping to challenge the name Transmedia as well. But I'm also thinking like all those amazing things that Transmedia, as we know it does, all the things like Elan was talking about, the T-shirt, all the things that you immerse between the reality and between the fiction, all that traversing of movement of the story, the journey, the time, that you don't know when the next thing is going to happen, all that unlocking, the learning about the story, what you contribute to it, what you bring back, all that evolution of the story is the most important thing, and is that traversing between reality and fiction, which matters more than the traversing between the medias. And I think that's kind of like something important to think when we are going to design the story. So then we look at what's happening with content. Do you remember we used to display content very proudly in our living rooms? We still do, but content was a great representation of our identity. So not only the type of content we have, but what book do we choose to put first, how we arrange our CDs, if it was by order or by genre. And then we start to replace all of that by convenience, and we move to iTunes. So we started to have more of them. We started to have a lot of songs. We have to start everything. Sorry, I need some water. So, and then that changed, and we went from convenience to accessibility. One day, Spotify came along, and we could access all our content there. So, and even more than the content than we used to have. So I know this is kind of like sounds obvious, yes, we all know about it, but what's happening to our relationship with content? That day, so we have all our music in Spotify, and then we realized that our music was public, that your friends follow you, that you follow your friends, and then suddenly we start to curate that content in a different way, because we are curating and we are adding another meaning to it. So it's not just a song I listen to, it's that I decided to call it Tuesday songs, and it's that I decided to link 3 artists together. So are we back to that relationship of identity? Is it like coming back on the same circle? Is it the same to have all your music and all your CDs here as the same to have all your collection displayed public in Spotify? Yes, in terms of identity, is it? But there is a difference. This content has an owner, and this one doesn't. And that's the most important thing to think about. I used to own that. I don't own this. But what I do own is how I interpret that content. And that's the desire that we are all having. When content is commoditized and everybody can access the same thing, suddenly I'm not the owner of the collection, but I'm owner of that particular curation, that reinterpretation, the way I cataloged it, the way I rename it, the way that I associate it. So I'm giving it a new meaning. And the same happened with photography. I'm picking about music and photography because they are one-dimensional and they are easier to talk about. So we have identity, we have our ownership, those were our photos. We move to iPhotos, suddenly we have millions, and then we move to Instagram. And we curate only the ones we want to talk about. So you have 5,000 on iPhoto, but you only have 300 on Instagram. And what are we doing with that? It is the same thing. This content has an owner, this one doesn't. So, and we all got over the fact that we don't own our photos on Instagram, and we are happy with that. We're happy to give away our rights. But why we're doing that? Because it's not anymore about the photo, it's about that moment, and what you're sharing is different. So this content hasn't got an owner, but this content is being created, curated, reinterpreted, cataloged, renamed, and it has a new meaning. So why would I want to own a photo of St. Paul's Cathedral? There are millions out there. But I want to own my hashtag, that was a happy moment. I want to own the filter that I put to it, and I want to own the way I view it. So it seems that we are going to back to where we were, and we can say, oh, yes, we've been through all that loop. And yes, actually, we have. But the relationship with content has changed, and that's really important when we think about storytelling. So we are adding new layers to our stories, and that's the part that people, when we talk about they want to immerse themselves, that's what they want to do. And I picked 2 examples from the art here. And this is by an artist called Corinne Vinet about an ecology of content. And that's something that we are seeing coming up. somebody that is making a piece of art out of saying, there are so many photos of the Eiffel Tower in Flickr. I'm just going to make one overlay in all of them. And that's what happens with digital content. We are all reproducing and replicating exactly the same thing everywhere until somebody comes and has a different take on them. And similar, this is another one, just to get us our head thinking that way. That's a photo of an artist that did a photo of a sunset. She's Penelope Umbrico. But actually, she downloaded all the sunsets from Flickr, and she created a new photo with all the sunsets from Flickr. And then talking about ecology of content and even ecology of making it, this artist, Sean Ruffman, takes photos of things that he finds on Google Street Views. So he goes through Street Views, and then when he decides that it's a moment worth framing, he makes a screen grab. He's an artist, he's a photographer, and that's what he does. So it's how we are dealing with content right now. We are kind of thinking like, there is another story to the content. There is a story that I want to tell. So if we think about the audience, what's happening? We have two basic ways of dealing with entertainment, how we look for it. Either we are looking for an item, so we know what we want to find, we know that it's that series, we know that it's that song, we know that it's that game. So we hunt for it, we look in everywhere. Or we just want to be entertained, amused, and we want to explore some platforms. We want to say, oh, I'm going to see what's on Love Film, or I want to see what's in Channel 4 tonight. I want to just go to that museum. And now we can do that both live or on demand. So we can hunt, and we can try to find items that I'm going to only find them tonight, or I can find them in different libraries. But what's happening with the idea of transmedia, that it is a kind of like here nor there. It's kind of like an stumble upon moment. So I think that's kind of like challenging when you're going to design this format, because it is not yet famous as an item that people can ask for it, or I want to participate on that transmedia story. And it's not yet, it hasn't got a platform that people can go to find it. So that idea of stumbling upon it, that you are in an event and something happened, or you're walking through the street and something happens, is probably part of the why it's so limited sometimes to get growing in a bigger audience. So how are you going to design entertainment that it fits within this stumble upon way of doing it? So, and what happens when we come across that? We want to leave a mark. When we find something, we want to capture it, we want to document it, we want to keep a record, we want to take a photo of it, we want to own it again. So because we don't own it anymore, we want to make it ours. So to everything, we put our frame, we put our composition, we tweet about the story, we relog about the story, we talk about it again, and it's always about our point of view. So this is a short story to talk about kind of different platforms. So live event, the artist is present, Marina Abramovic sitting with different people at the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. So the Museum of Modern Art decided, because they couldn't show the event live, they decided to create a Flickr account with all the photos of the people that were coming to sit down and see Marina. That was okay, and I learned this story actually from a marketing director of the Museum of Modern Art that she told, what happened afterwards? What was more successful? Somebody created a Tumblr account called Marina Abramovic Made Me Cry, and that person selected only the photos of the people that cry that were sitting with Marina. So that's something telling us this person had a story to tell. That second platform that simply had the flickers and the photos of the people that were sitting with Marina wasn't good enough. It was a platform. The museum was telling the story in a different way, but this one has a story, had a filter. Also, then I came across that she created Marina Abramovic hotties. So she did put there the people that sit opposite next to her. So, and these encounters that we have with art, with entertainments, with the things that we like, sometimes happen in a way that we can't control it. But this is great also when we think about these new stories, because as an audience, we have a different degree of kind of collective consciousness. We are all starting to see that we are all thinking the same. So, Get Lucky, kind of song of the summer, they haven't played in England, but there was Glastonbury. And Nile Rodgers from Chic, who helped produce Get Lucky, played at Glastonbury. But of course, he wasn't allowed to play the song because it's not entirely his. And Daft Punk has to play it first. But when he stopped playing, what did the people started to do? So, and it kept going on, and they end up singing the whole song. So, and everybody gets more excited, and you have to watch it. Actually, it was on YouTube, and then they took it off of YouTube because it wasn't even allowed to be on YouTube, so it moved to Daily Motion, and et cetera, but now it's back, and people are commenting that it shouldn't be back. But anyway, so it's talking about entertainment in a way that sometimes even the artist or the producer or the person that is making it doesn't own the content anymore. The people own the experience. The people own the desire to be part of it. They own the desire to participate. And it wasn't that everybody was tweeting each other saying, let's start to sing now. It just happened because it wasn't the desire of the audience. So what are we doing? We're embedding ourselves. Because we don't own content anymore, because it's not ours, because we want to experience it, we are embedding ourselves in it. So we're deconstructing and reconstructing it. We take it and we put our own filter to it. So what does this mean for transmedia storytelling or any form of kind of new form of storytelling? And I have here an example of the Lightro camera. I don't know if you all are familiar with it. The Lightro camera can take a photo, and it has a light depth of field, and it means that it captures all the light possible in that own photo. So that photo is alive. The camera costs £300. You can buy it. But it means that if I take that photo today, in the future, I can look at the photo again, and I can change my perspective because I can change the angle of how I'm looking at it. So I think that's a really interesting way to think it about, because it's not about creating something more. It's about how do you embed all that information in a story so we can come again and put our own filters. So I picked two very mainstream examples because I think part of the point is how you bring these stories mainstream. So we have House of Cards on Netflix. We all know that it's been famous for releasing all the 13 episodes together all in one. I think it's great, but if we're thinking about transmedia storytelling in the way that this journey that we just did and we just think about content, what is a real digital file? So it's not 13 episodes, it's 520 minutes of content. But in the way that it's been delivered to us, yes, it's novelty. We have the 13 episodes to snack and, as I say, as we want. But actually, if we think about we have 520 minutes of content, I can watch the content in very different ways. I can probably want to have my water cooler tomorrow morning and just have watched the 520 minutes in a go. So why can I not have a shorter version of the story? Why can I not use literacy techniques and say, I want to start with a flash forward. I want to start with a point back in time. I want to pick the framing devices. And I can make of the story many different stories, because if the story is alive, all that information will be contained with it. And then if we think about Breaking Bad, it finished, people loved it, it captured the imagination of everyone. But sometimes not everybody will want to dress up as Walt and go to a party and kind of keep playing the game. So how are we going to make people to really embrace that story? So imagine if I want to watch it again, I missed it. Well, no, I miss it. I want to watch it again. So probably the second time I watch it, I start to unlock different things. Probably I want to say, you know what? Saul Goodman made our lives really easy. What if we remove him from the story? I want to be part of this, thinking about what the challenges for that story will be. So, and I'm saying this because it's all containing one media. And of course, it will have different platforms that I will go to it. But if we start to think about an ecology of content, and if we start to think about a story that is alive, that I intervene with the story what I want, that then I can say, guys, I watched Breaking Bad 14 times. I unlock a new story every time I watch it, not because I saw things differently, because new things were coming up, because the file is encoded, and because the file knows that I watched it 14 times. Come to my house, I will show you the new series that I came up with my filter, because I put through it 14 times. So then when we talk about it, we're not going to be all talking about the same thing ever again. We're adding a new filter and we're adding a new story. And I think that's kind of quite important for the future of storytelling, and to have a truly participating experience with the audience and letting them all be part of it. So to sum up, when we think about format should be the medium that helps us navigate between reality and fiction. And it helps us intervene, keep track of where we are, communicate, and experience a story together. When we think about content, let's think about content that is alive. Yes, that moves, that is dynamic, that it can move from one platform to the other one, but it's alive within it. And there are layers that could be unlocked, there are filters that could be applied, and there are alternate directions to be taken. And when we think about the audience, let's not underestimate it. We have an audience that really embraces things and is up for new challenges, and that will exploit every possibility if there's a story that they love. So when designing the story, we need to think not only about the format and the content, but we need to think about all that intersection and design the experience between the three. Thank you.